Okay, so here is another little paper model called a P-35, Seversky P-35. It was a 1930s design. It's in 1/33rd scale again, and it's by Modelik, or I'm not sure how you pronounce it. But it's the first model that I've built that's an actual, honest-to-goodness, old-fashioned paper model, in that it was made in the plan, say 1998, but it's all hand-drawn, hand-colored, hand-drawn. It's kind of neat when you look at it because the coloration, for instance, on it, on the plan, there were places that were overlapped, there were places that were, colors were outside of the lines, for example. So it's definitely something that was done by hand, which is kind of neat. You can see some of the formers and things. You can see that were hand drawn. And this thing was designed and built with a calculator, a French curve, a compass, ruler, the old-fashioned way. It wasn't computer designed, and yet it still turned out really, really nice, I have to say. There's the cover of the model itself. And again, it's the oldest model I think I have, and it turned out really, really well. I'll move this a little bit so you can see better contrast with the airplane now, I think. So, some really neat things about this model. As I said, I'm pleased with it because it's my first actual old-fashioned, essentially, model. But the only problem I had, it's really nice. I should say some of the good stuff about it first. The silver painting on the paper is really well done, didn't crinkle, didn't flake, turned out really nicely. All the markings are in register. I think the round circles in the star are a little bit big, to be realistic. But it is a very well designed little model and went together very well. Particularly pleased with the wing fillets here. They went together really well, and they look really good on there. There are some things I had to fix on it a little bit. I don't know if you can see it, but in the back here through these windows, it's green, it's interior green. I had to airbrush that on because that wasn't there in the original model. The canopy is an aftermarket commercial canopy that I cut apart, and it's pretty nice to have. I've never used one before, but it looks really good, and I'm glad I got it. Turned out nice. The biggest issue with this little model was the skins were slightly bigger than the formers. In other words, you'd fold the skin around and the former would swim inside. So you had to take a little bit of paper off of the skins. At least that's how I did it. I assume that I didn't do anything wrong, but maybe I cut something wrong too. I don't know. But I had to do it with all of these. The other thing is that these fuselage and wings, all the little formers, or all the little connections, are all butt joints. So there's a butt joint there. You can see it too well. There's a butt joint there. There's a butt joint here. Here's one here, back here. And that means that these formers, there's two formers here, there's two formers here, two formers there, two formers there, two formers there, etc. Two formers up here. And they have to be the identical size, so you cut them out at the same time and shape them so they're the same size for sure. And then you butt joint these, and you should come up with very little overlap or bumps, but it's not easy. It's not as easy, I don't think, as using the tabs and things, which is more typical, that I like. But again, it turned out okay. There's not too many mistakes on here. The interior is kind of neat in that it is very simple. It was all one color, essentially. It was green, and then I went in with a marker, green with black details, and I went in with a marker and sort of modified things a little bit, some shading on parts, etc., just to make it look interesting. The only change I made on it was I dropped the elevators. That was easy to do. You can't hardly tell, I don't think, but maybe you can in that little shot. see how the aileron, these are fabric covered in the real airplane, so I colored these with the airbrush a little bit different, and the elevators as well, just to give a little bit of contrast, little difference. I also made these little wingtip lights. I made them three-dimensional by using a little bit of tacky glue that I used to put the model together, and layer it on there, and it makes it, you know, it dries clear, and then I just coated these with some Tamiya clear green or red, depending. It's got some real neat stuff, like there's some complicated stuff that goes on with this airplane, like the sort of quintessential wheel spats here. These wheel pants, these spats on here, all went together very well. The wheels are made out of balsa as usual, but you know, they turned out pretty well, surprisingly to me. And you can see where there's places where you can see where there's cuts and folds where you put things together, and mine aren't that precise, but they're close. Little exhaust pipes out of here. One thing I did differently in the interior, I doubt you can see that at all. The lighting is so horrible, but inside there was just a black circle for the engine. I actually found a picture of a Pratt & Whitney engine head on and didn't stuck it in there, so it looked a little more interesting. The propeller, to me, is probably the worst part of the kit. It's the weakest part of the kit. The hub is really weird. The hub doesn't look like the real hub. But the blades are just flat, and so I curved them and twisted them to make them look more like a propeller a little bit. More foibles that are my fault are some things like you can see where things didn't match up right here, but that's probably me. These two pieces come together, and this is part of the circular piece that fits, that join the fuselage halves, the wing halves together up against the fuselage. But I just colored them with some magic marker. Back here you can see I took off too much of the skins when I was making them, and it was too small. So I had to add here, so I just had to try to fix that. Again, you don't display them all upside down, so I'm not that worried. But all in all, a really neat little model. I really do appreciate the color scheme and just the general look of it. It's a pretty airplane, and you know, a neat in between the wars airplane. Oh, one other thing I did, the pitot tube had to be made with the little crook, the little extra piece down on the tip, and that's just pieces of plastic, and then I painted them. But again, this little airplane, I think it's, you know, colorful and neat looking. It's a real cool airplane when you think about the time it was made. It's a real nice addition. And what I want to do now is make a P-47 and put it next to it, because P-47 is a couple more generations ahead, but this is the airplane that was the original design, sort of the lineage. Oh, one other thing. Here, for instance, is a good example of the cowling is supposed to be smooth, and this line is where these two cowl rings for the model were put together. And you can see, you know, it's visible. I could have sanded this and filled it and then painted it, but I didn't want to. I wanted to keep this model pretty much as the designer made it, because it's really an original sort of paper model, and the way it's put together is very original. So I left it as is, and I think it looks fine. I don't think that looks bad. I don't think that looks silly in any way. I think it looks pretty good. So anyway, if you can find this kit, by all means, it would be a really good introduction to sort of a real paper model kit. Give it a go.